5 men cornered Marcus Chen in the back room of Rossi's trattoria, their fists already clenched, their threats already spoken. The Millionaire CEO had 48 hours to sign over his tech empire, or his daughter would pay the price. But what they didn't know, what no one in Seattle's underworld knew, was that the quiet man watching from the corner booth, the one who'd been coming here every Thursday for 10 years, wasn't just another customer. When Dominic Santoro rose from his seat and removed his gloves with the precision of a surgeon, the room's temperature dropped 10 degrees, and when he spoke his first word in flawless Mandarin, the attacker's confidence shattered like glass. If you're listening to this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what part of the world you're listening from. Seattle wore November like a second skin, gray clouds pressing low over the Space Needle, rain tapping persistent fingers against restaurant windows, the smell of wet asphalt mixing with roasted garlic and fresh basil. Dominic Santoro had built his empire in this city, brick by invisible brick, favor by calculated favor, until his name carried weight in rooms he'd never entered. But on Thursday evenings, he was simply a man who liked good pasta. Rossi's trattoria occupied a brick building in Pioneer Square, wedged between a law office and an art gallery that never seemed to open. The restaurant's windows glowed amber against the early darkness, and inside, red check tablecloths and Sinatra on the speakers created an illusion of timelessness. Dominic had claimed the corner booth 11 years ago, the one with a clear view of both entrances and the kitchen door. Old habits. He was 52, though most people guessed younger. His hair, steel gray and precisely cut, swept back from a face that revealed nothing unless he wanted it to. Tonight, he wore a charcoal suit, no tie, the kind of understated elegance that whispered rather than shouted. His hands, scarred knuckles hidden beneath Italian leather gloves, rested on either side of his untouched wine glass. Mr. Santoro, Maria Rossi, the owner's daughter, appeared with his usual order. Cacio e pepe, extra pepper, bread on the side. Thank you, Maria. His voice carried the faint rasp of a man who'd learned early that silence held more power than volume. She hesitated, glancing toward the back room where the private dining area was. We have some guests tonight. They requested privacy. I hope the noise doesn't disturb you. Dominic's expression didn't change, but his attention sharpened. Through the partially open door, he could see 5 men surrounding a 6th at a table. The surrounded man wore an expensive suit gone rumpled, his face pale with fear. The others had the look of hired muscle. Too much confidence, not enough discipline. I'm sure it will be fine, Dominic said, and Maria retreated with visible relief. He ate slowly, methodically, but his focus had shifted. The rain intensified outside, drumming harder against the windows. In the back room, voices rose, one pleading, others threatening. Dominic recognized the language of intimidation, the specific cadence of men who enjoyed their work too much. The surrounded man was Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Technologies, a company that had revolutionized data encryption. Dominic knew this because he made it his business to know everyone who mattered in Seattle. Chen was 40, self-made, with a reputation for integrity that was almost quaint in their circles. He had a daughter, Emma, who attended Lakeside School. He drove a Tesla, donated to children's hospitals, and had never once bent a rule that mattered, which made him exactly the kind of target that drew predators. Sign it. The largest of the 5 men, shaved head, neck tattoos creeping above his collar, slammed a document on the table. Sign it or we visit your daughter's school tomorrow. Chen's hands trembled. Please. There has to be another way. The company employs 300 people. We don't care about your employees. Another man, this one with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, leaned in close. We care about the encryption patents. Sign them over to our client, and this ends. Refuse, and the threat hung unfinished, more effective for its silence. Dominic set down his fork. The rain had become a downpour now, sheets of water obscuring the street outside. In the kitchen, someone dropped a pan, the clatter sharp and sudden. The moment stretched, pulled taut like a wire about to snap. Then Chen did something unexpected. He stood, his chair scraping back, and his voice, though it shook, carried clearly. No, I won't sign. Do what you have to do, but I won't destroy what I built. I won't let my daughter grow up knowing her father was a coward. The 5 men exchanged glances. The one with the shaved head smiled, and it was the smile of a man about to enjoy himself. Wrong answer. The first punch caught Chen in the stomach, doubling him over. The second split his lip. They moved with practiced efficiency, backing him against the wall, their fists rising. Dominic stood. He didn't hurry. He removed his gloves, folding them precisely and placing them beside his wine glass. He buttoned his suit jacket. He walked toward the back room with the unhurried grace of a man who had all the time in the world, because in this moment, he did. The men didn't notice him until he was in the doorway. "Gentlemen," his voice cut through their violence like a blade through silk. "I believe Mr. Chen has made his position clear." The shaved-head man turned, irritation flashing across his face. "This is private business, old man. Walk away." Dominic's expression didn't change. He stepped fully into the room, and something in the way he moved, the absolute certainty of his presence, made the men pause. "I'm afraid I can't do that." Dominic's gaze moved to Chen, who was slumped against the wall, blood on his chin. "Mr. Chen is a valued member of this community, and you've disrupted my dinner." The scarred man laughed. "You've got to be kidding. You know who we work for?" "I don't care who you work for." Dominic's voice remained level, almost conversational. "You have 10 seconds to leave this restaurant. After that, I stop being polite." For a moment, the 5 men simply stared. Then the shaved-head man lunged. What happened next took less than 15 seconds, but it would be replayed in whispered conversations across Seattle's underworld for months. Dominic moved with a precision that spoke of decades of training, of muscle memory so deep it was instinct. The first man went down with a broken wrist. The second found himself face first on the table, arm twisted at an angle that made Chen wince. The third and fourth rushed together and collided with each other when Dominic sidestepped at the last instant. The fifth man, the scarred one, pulled a knife. "Don't." Dominic's voice carried a warning that made the temperature drop. The man lunged anyway. Dominic caught his wrist, twisted, and the knife clattered to the floor. Then he leaned in close, and when he spoke, it was in flawless Mandarin, the Beijing dialect that Chen's own grandmother had spoken. "Tell your employer that Marcus Chen is under my protection now. Tell them that anyone who touches him or his family will answer to Dominic Santoro. And tell them that I don't give second warnings." The scarred man's face went white, not because of the pain in his wrist, but because he suddenly understood exactly who he'd tried to threaten. Dominic released him, and the 5 men scrambled for the exit, leaving blood on the floor and their dignity in tatters. In the sudden silence, rain drummed against the windows. Chen stared at Dominic, shock and confusion warring on his face. "Who are you?" Chen whispered. Dominic picked up a napkin and handed it to Chen for his bleeding lip. "Someone who appreciates good pasta and hates interruptions. Go home to your daughter, Mr. Chen. You're safe now. But go home." Chen went, casting one last bewildered glance over his shoulder. Dominic returned to his booth. His pasta had gone cold, but Maria appeared immediately with a fresh plate, her hands shaking slightly. "Mr. Santoro, I'm so sorry. We didn't know they would—" "It's handled, Maria." He smiled, and it was genuine. "The cacio e pepe is perfect as always." Outside, the rain continued its relentless percussion. Dominic ate his dinner, savoring each bite, while his mind calculated the ripples this evening would send through the city's hidden networks. He'd broken his own cardinal rule: never draw attention, never make yourself visible. But some things mattered more than rules. As he finished his meal, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. MC." Dominic stared at the message, then at the rain-streaked window where his reflection gazed back. A man caught between the life he'd built in shadows and the light that threatened to expose it. He typed a single word: tomorrow. The die was cast. The ordinary Thursday had become something else entirely. And Dominic Santoro, who had spent decades perfecting the art of invisibility, had just stepped into the spotlight. The rain drummed on, indifferent to the choices of men, as the first act of an inevitable drama drew to its close. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crystalline clarity that only follows a heavy rain. Seattle's streets gleamed like polished obsidian, and Mount Rainier stood sharp against a rare blue sky. Dominic watched the sunrise from his penthouse in Belltown, coffee in hand, while his phone accumulated messages he hadn't yet answered. The apartment was a study in controlled minimalism. Dark hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that suggested wealth without announcing it. On one wall hung a single painting, a Caravaggio reproduction, The Calling of St. Matthew, light and shadow, the moment of choice. Dominic had bought it 20 years ago, when he still believed in redemption. His phone rang. Not the burner he used for business, but his personal line. Only 7 people had this number. Santoro. "We have a problem." The voice belonged to Vincent Calabrese, his oldest friend, and the closest thing to a conscience Dominic possessed. "The men from last night work for the Zhao Syndicate. You humiliated them in front of a civilian. They're calling for a meeting." Dominic sipped his coffee, watching a ferry cut across Elliott Bay. "When?" "Tonight. Neutral ground. The warehouse on Harbor Island." Vincent paused. "Dom, this wasn't smart. The Zhao family controls half the port traffic. If they decide to push back, they won't." "How can you be sure?" "Because I'm going to give them something they want more than revenge." Vincent sighed, a sound of long-suffering patience. "What are you planning?" "I'll know when I get there." "Set it up for 8 o'clock. He ended the call and turned to find Marcus Chen standing in his living room. Dominic's hand moved instinctively toward the gun he kept in his jacket, then stopped. Chen held up both hands, empty, his face a mixture of determination and fear. "Your doorman is very persuasive when you mention the right name," Chen said. "We need to talk. Breaking into someone's home is an interesting way to express gratitude." "I didn't break in. I walked in. There's a difference." Chen moved to the window, keeping distance between them. "I spent all night researching you. Dominic Santoro. Arrived in Seattle 23 years ago with nothing. Built a consulting firm that somehow has its fingers in every major development project in the city. No criminal record, but your name appears in sealed court documents 17 times. You're a ghost who casts a very long shadow. You should have stopped researching and started forgetting." "I can't forget." Chen turned, and his eyes held something Dominic recognized. The desperate clarity of a man with everything to lose. Those men last night, they weren't random thugs. They knew about Emma's schedule, her route to school, where my ex-wife lives. They've been watching us for weeks. And you, he gestured at Dominic, you spoke to them in Mandarin. Perfect Mandarin. How? Dominic set down his coffee. "I've lived many lives, Mr. Chen. I speak 7 languages. It's useful in my line of work." "Which is what exactly?" "I solve problems that can't be solved through conventional means." "You're a criminal." "I'm a businessman who operates in gray areas." "There's a difference." Chen laughed, sharp and bitter. "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, you're the only reason my daughter is safe, and I don't know whether to thank you or run from you." "Do both." Dominic moved to a cabinet and poured 2 glasses of whiskey, despite the early hour. He handed one to Chen. "Thank me, then go back to your life and pretend last night never happened. I've handled the situation." "Have you?" Chen took the glass but didn't drink. "Because I got a call this morning. Anonymous. They said the offer still stands. Sign over the patents, or Emma pays. They said what happened last night was just a misunderstanding between employees." Dominic's expression hardened. "What time was this call?" 6:30. I was making Emma breakfast. She asked why my hands were shaking. The whiskey burned going down, but Dominic barely noticed. The Zhao Syndicate was pushing back faster than he'd anticipated. They were testing him, seeing if his protection was real or just theater. "I have a meeting tonight," Dominic said, "with the people who sent those men. After that, you won't receive any more calls." "How can you be sure?" "Because I'm going to make them an offer they can't refuse." He smiled at the cliché, but there was no humor in it. "It's what I do." Chen finally drank, wincing at the strength of the whiskey. "Why did you help me? You don't know me. We've never even spoken before last night." Dominic was silent for a long moment, watching the city wake up below them. 10 years ago, my niece, my sister's daughter, was accepted to Lakeside School. Full scholarship. She's brilliant, wants to be a doctor. Your company sponsors their STEM program. You personally funded 3 additional scholarships last year. One of them went to a girl from Rainier Valley whose father drives a bus. That girl is my niece. Understanding dawned on Chen's face. Sophia Russo. She doesn't know about me. My sister made sure of that. As far as Sophia knows, I'm just her uncle who works in import-export and sends birthday cards. Dominic refilled his glass. You gave her a chance at a life I could never provide. So yes, Mr. Chen, I know exactly who you are, and men like you are rare enough that they're worth protecting, even if it costs you, especially then. Chen set down his glass, his decision made. I want to help. Whatever you're planning tonight, let me be part of it. These are my patents they're after, my daughter they threatened. I can't just hide while you— No, Mr. Santoro, no. Dominic's voice carried absolute finality. You're a good man, Chen. You build things, create value, employ people. I'm the opposite. I break things when necessary, and I'm very good at it. Your role is to go home, kiss your daughter, and trust that I'll handle this. My role is to make sure you never have to become what I am. And what are you? Dominic met his gaze. A necessary evil. Now go. I have preparations to make. Chen left, but his presence lingered like smoke. Dominic stood at the window, watching the city pulse with morning traffic, and allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. He'd built his empire on the principle of invisibility, power exercised through proxies, influence wielded in whispers. Last night had shattered that carefully constructed facade. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your meeting tonight. Come alone, or Chen's daughter has an accident on her way home from school. Dominic deleted the message and made 3 calls. The first was to Vincent, with specific instructions. The second was to a woman in Tacoma who owed him a favor and had access to certain resources. The third was to his lawyer, updating his will. Then he went to his bedroom and opened a safe hidden behind a false panel. Inside were things from his past, a passport with a different name, cash in multiple currencies, and a photograph of a young woman with dark eyes and a cautious smile. His sister, 20 years ago, before cancer took her, before Sophia became his responsibility and his redemption. He touched the photograph once, gently, then closed the safe. At noon, he received a visitor. She arrived without announcement, walking past his doorman with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Elena Volkov was 38, with ice blonde hair and eyes that missed nothing. She ran the city's most exclusive art gallery, a front for one of the most sophisticated money laundering operations on the West Coast. I heard about last night, she said, accepting the coffee he offered. The whole city's heard about it. You broke Jimmy Zhao's enforcer's wrist. He'll heal. That's not the point, Dom. You've been invisible for 2 decades. Now you're the talk of every back room from here to Vancouver. Why? Because sometimes the right thing and the smart thing aren't the same. Elena studied him, her expression unreadable. You're going to the meeting tonight. Yes. You know it's a trap. Yes. And you're going anyway because of some tech CEO you've never met. I'm going because I'm tired, Elena. The admission surprised him as much as it did her. I'm tired of watching good people get crushed because they refuse to compromise. I'm tired of being the monster in the shadows. Maybe it's time to be the monster in the light. Monsters in the light don't last long. I know. She set down her coffee, and for a moment, the mask of the ruthless businesswoman slipped, revealing something softer. Be careful tonight. The Zhao family doesn't forgive insults. And Jimmy's father, Wei Zhao, he's old school. He'll want blood. Then he'll get it. Just not the blood he expects. Elena left, and Dominic spent the afternoon in preparation. He cleaned his gun, though he didn't expect to use it. He reviewed files on the Zhao family's operations, looking for pressure points. He meditated, a practice learned from a monk in Thailand during a life he barely remembered. At 7 o'clock, as the sun set over Puget Sound, painting the water in shades of copper and gold, Dominic dressed in a black suit and drove to Harbor Island. The warehouse was exactly what he'd expected, isolated, surrounded by shipping containers, with multiple exits and clear sight lines, a place designed for violence. Vincent was waiting outside, leaning against a black SUV. They're already inside. 8 men, all armed. Wei Zhao himself is here, which means this is serious. Good. I prefer serious. Dom, if this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, make sure Sophia gets the college fund. And tell her, he paused, searching for words that wouldn't come. Tell her I tried to be better. You're being dramatic. I'm being realistic. Dominic walked into the warehouse alone, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. 8 men stood in a semicircle around an older man seated in a chair that might as well have been a throne. Wei Zhao was 70, with silver hair and the kind of stillness that came from absolute confidence. He wore a tailored suit and held a cup of tea, incongruous in the industrial setting. Mr. Santoro, Wei's English was perfect, barely accented. You've caused me considerable inconvenience. You threatened a child. I responded appropriately. Appropriately? Wei sipped his tea. You assaulted my employees. You interfered in a legitimate business transaction. And you did so in a public place, humiliating my organization. This requires compensation. I agree. Dominic stopped 10 feet away, hands visible and empty. Which is why I'm here to offer you something better than Marcus Chen's patents. Wei raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. Chen Technologies is small, specialized. The encryption patents are valuable, but limited in application. What you really want is access to the port's new automated tracking system, the one that goes live next month, the one that will monitor every container that moves through Seattle. Wei set down his tea. That system is controlled by the Port Authority. It's not for sale. Everything's for sale. And I have the access codes. Dominic pulled a flash drive from his pocket. Complete administrative access. You can route shipments, delay inspections, make entire containers invisible to customs. It's worth 50 times what Chen's patents would have given you. The warehouse fell silent, except for the distant sound of water lapping against pilings. Wei studied Dominic with the intensity of a chess master evaluating an unexpected move. Why would you give me this? Because I'm buying peace. You leave Chen alone. You leave his family alone. And you get something that will make you the most powerful smuggling operation on the West Coast. Everyone wins. Except the Port Authority. They're insured. Wei laughed, a dry sound like paper rustling. You're either very brave or very stupid, Mr. Santoro. Possibly both. He gestured, and one of his men took the flash drive, plugging it into a laptop. Minutes passed while they verified the contents. Finally, the man nodded to Wei. It's real. Full administrative access. Exactly as he said. Wei stood, moving with the careful grace of age. He approached Dominic until they were face to face. You've made a powerful enemy today, Mr. Santoro. But you've also earned my respect. The Chen family is off limits. You have my word. And the men who threatened them will be reassigned, far from Seattle. Dominic extended his hand. Wei shook it, his grip still strong despite his years. As Dominic turned to leave, Wei spoke again. One question. Those access codes, they're real, but they're also traceable. The Port Authority will know within a week that they've been compromised. You've just made yourself a target for federal investigation. Dominic smiled. I know, but some things are worth the price. He walked out into the night, where Vincent waited with the engine running. How did it go? Better than expected. Worse than hoped. Dominic climbed into the SUV. Get me home. I need to make some calls. As they drove back toward the city, Dominic's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Chen. Thank you. I don't know what you did, but they called. It's over. How can I ever repay you? Dominic typed back. Keep being who you are. That's payment enough. He deleted the conversation and watched the city lights blur past, knowing that he'd just traded his carefully constructed invisibility for something more dangerous. Visibility with purpose. The rain began again, gentle this time, washing the streets clean. In the distance, thunder rumbled, a promise of storms to come. The federal agents arrived on Tuesday morning, 3 days after Dominic's meeting with Wei Zhao. They came in unmarked cars, wearing suits that screamed law enforcement, and they brought warrants that covered everything from his business records to his dental history. Dominic watched from his office window as they filed into the building lobby. He'd been expecting them, had prepared for this moment since he'd handed over those access codes. Still, seeing it happen felt like watching a carefully constructed house of cards begin its inevitable collapse. His office occupied the top floor of a building in South Lake Union, with views of the Space Needle and Lake Union. The brass nameplate on the door read, Santoro Consulting Group, and the reception area projected exactly the right blend of prosperity and discretion. His assistant, Margaret, 62, grandmother of 4, former CIA analyst, appeared in his doorway. They're on their way up. FBI, Port Authority Police, and someone from Homeland Security. Her voice remained calm, professional. I've already called Mr. Calabresi. Thank you, Margaret. When they ask, tell them I'm cooperating fully. Are you? Dominic smiled. Define fully. The lead agent was a woman named Sarah Chen, no relation to Marcus, though Dominic noted the coincidence. She was 40, with sharp eyes, and the kind of intensity that suggested she'd clawed her way up through a system designed to keep her down. Behind her came 3 men, all carrying the weight of federal authority like a shield. Mr. Santoro. Agent Chen didn't offer her hand. I'm Special Agent Chen, FBI. We have a warrant to search these premises and seize all electronic devices and financial records. We also have some questions. Of course. My office is yours. Dominic gestured to the leather chairs facing his desk. Can I offer you coffee? Margaret makes excellent coffee. This isn't a social call. No, but it's going to be a long day. Might as well be civilized about it. Something flickered in Chen's expression. Surprise, maybe, or grudging respect. She nodded to one of her colleagues, who began the systematic dismantling of Dominic's office while she sat across from him. 4 days ago, the Port Authority's automated tracking system was compromised. Someone with administrative access downloaded the complete security protocols and access codes. Those codes were then used to reroute 3 shipping containers, all of which contained contraband. We're talking about $15 million in smuggled electronics and pharmaceuticals. That's unfortunate. The breach was traced to a flash drive that was verified at a warehouse on Harbor Island, a warehouse owned by a subsidiary of a company linked to the Zhao family. And according to our surveillance, you were at that warehouse the night the codes were transferred. Dominic kept his expression neutral. I meet with many people in many places. I'm a consultant. It's what I do. What exactly do you consult on, Mr. Santoro? Business development, conflict resolution, strategic planning. That's remarkably vague. I serve a diverse clientele. Agent Chen leaned forward. Let me be direct. We know you're connected to organized crime. We know you've been operating in Seattle for over 20 years, somehow avoiding prosecution despite being linked to money laundering, extortion, and racketeering. But this, she tapped the folder in front of her, this is federal infrastructure. This is terrorism adjacent. This is the kind of charge that puts people away for 20 years minimum. If you had evidence, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd be reading me my rights. We have surveillance footage of you entering and leaving that warehouse. We have testimony from Port Authority employees about unusual access patterns. We have the flash drive itself, with your fingerprints on it. Circumstantial. Is it? Chen pulled out a photograph, sliding it across the desk. It showed Dominic shaking hands with Wei Zhao, the flash drive visible in his other hand. This was taken by a long-range camera. It's time-stamped, authenticated, and admissible in court. Dominic studied the photograph. It was damning, no question. But he'd expected this too. I want my lawyer. Smart choice. Chen stood. We'll continue this conversation downtown. You're not under arrest, yet, but I strongly suggest you don't leave the city. They left with boxes of files, hard drives, and enough evidence to keep a grand jury busy for months. Dominic sat alone in his stripped office, watching the rain begin again, and allowed himself a moment of honest assessment. He'd sacrificed his invisibility to protect Marcus Chen. Now he was paying the price. The question was whether that price would be his freedom, his empire, or his life. His phone rang. Vincent, I heard. How bad? Bad enough. They have surveillance, forensics, testimony. Chen's building a case. The agent, not the CEO? Yes. Apparently the universe has a sense of irony. Vincent was quiet for a moment. We can make this go away. I know people. The evidence could disappear. Witnesses could reconsider their testimony. No. Dominic's voice was firm. I made this choice. I'll live with the consequences. That's very noble. It's also very stupid. Probably. But I'm tired of the other way. He ended the call and left his office, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, a habit from years of paranoia. In the lobby, he nearly collided with Marcus Chen. Mr. Santoro. Chen looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes. I heard about the FBI. This is because of me, isn't it? Because you protected me. It's because of choices I made. That's different. Let me help. I have lawyers, resources. Your help would only make things worse. Go home, Mr. Chen. Be with your daughter. That's what I did this for. But Chen didn't leave. Instead, he said something that changed everything. I know where the real access codes are. Dominic stopped. What? The codes you gave the Zhao family. They were real, but they weren't the only ones. I designed that tracking system. I built in a backdoor, something even the Port Authority doesn't know about. Complete control, untraceable. I can prove you didn't compromise the system. I can prove someone else did. Why would you have a backdoor in a federal system? Chen smiled, bitter and knowing. Because I grew up in a country where the government monitored everything. I learned early that you always keep an exit strategy. Always maintain control of your own creation. The Port Authority hired me to build their system, but I made sure I could shut it down if they ever used it for something I disagreed with. Dominic stared at him, seeing the man in a new light. Not just an idealistic CEO, but someone who understood the necessity of insurance, of leverage, someone more like Dominic than either of them had realized. If you reveal that back door, you'll be admitting to a federal crime. I know, but you sacrificed your freedom for my daughter's safety. The least I can do is return the favor. Chen, my name is Marcus, and I've made my decision. Before Dominic could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Look outside. He moved to the window. Across the street, a black sedan was parked with its engine running. In the driver's seat sat a man Dominic recognized, one of Wei Zhao's lieutenants. The man raised a phone to his ear, and Dominic's phone rang. Mr. Santoro. The voice was Wei Zhao's. I've been informed of your federal difficulties. This is unfortunate. It's handled. Is it? Because I'm looking at surveillance footage that shows you meeting with Marcus Chen multiple times, and I'm wondering if perhaps you played me, if those access codes were bait to draw attention to my organization while you protected your real asset. Dominic's blood ran cold. That's not... I don't care if it's true. I care how it looks, and it looks like you used me. That requires a response. The line went dead. Across the street, the sedan pulled away, but Dominic knew what it meant. Wei Zhao had just declared war. Marcus stood beside him, staring at the departing car. What just happened? You need to leave Seattle. Tonight. Take Emma. Go somewhere safe. I'm not running. You don't have a choice. The Zhao family thinks I betrayed them. They'll come after everyone connected to me, and that includes you. Then we fight back. With what? Good intentions? Dominic grabbed Marcus by the shoulders, forcing him to focus. Listen to me. I've survived in this world for 20 years because I understand its rules. And the first rule is that good men don't win. They get crushed. I can protect you, but only if you let me. Marcus pulled away, his jaw set. I'm not a child. I'm not helpless. And I'm not going to let you face this alone. You don't have a say in... The window exploded. Dominic tackled Marcus to the floor as bullets tore through the office, shredding furniture and punching holes in the walls. The shooting lasted 10 seconds, maybe 15, but it felt like an eternity. When silence finally returned, Dominic's ears were ringing and his shoulder burned where glass had cut him. Are you hit? He checked Marcus for wounds. No, I'm okay. What? Stay down. Dominic crawled to the window, risking a glance outside. The black sedan was gone, replaced by chaos. People running, car alarms blaring, someone screaming. His phone buzzed. Another text from Wei Zhao. That was a warning. Next time, I won't miss. Dominic helped Marcus to his feet, both of them bleeding from minor cuts. The office looked like a war zone, and Dominic knew it was only the beginning. Still want to help? He asked Marcus. Marcus nodded, his fear transformed into something harder, more determined, more than ever. Then here's what we're going to do. Dominic moved to his desk, pulling out a burner phone from a hidden compartment. We're going to prove I didn't betray Wei Zhao. We're going to expose whoever really compromised that system. And we're going to do it before the FBI arrests me, or the Zhao family kills us both. How? By doing what I should have done from the beginning, trusting someone else. He dialed a number he'd memorized but never used, and by calling in every favor I've earned in 20 years. The phone rang 3 times before a woman answered. I was wondering when you'd call. Elena, I need your help. I know, I'm already on my way. Dominic ended the call and looked at Marcus, seeing in him something unexpected. A partner, maybe, or a reflection of the man Dominic might have been in another life. This is going to get worse before it gets better, Dominic warned. I know. Marcus picked up a piece of broken glass, studying his reflection in it. But I'm done being the victim. If I'm going to lose everything, I'd rather lose it fighting. Outside, sirens wailed as police responded to the shooting. Inside, 2 men stood in the wreckage of Dominic's carefully constructed life and made a choice that would define everything that followed. The rain intensified, washing blood from the windows, and somewhere in the city, forces were gathering. Federal agents, organized crime, and the weight of consequences that could no longer be avoided. The war had begun. The safe house was in Fremont, tucked behind a vintage clothing store and a coffee roaster, the kind of place that looked too ordinary to hide anything important. Elena had arranged it within an hour of the shooting, demonstrating the kind of efficiency that had made her invaluable to Seattle's underground economy. Dominic sat at a scarred wooden table, his shoulder bandaged, while Marcus paced the small apartment like a caged animal. Elena stood by the window, watching the street below with the vigilance of someone who'd survived by never relaxing. The FBI has issued a warrant for your arrest, Elena said without turning. Conspiracy to commit terrorism. They're calling you a domestic threat. Dramatic. Dominic flexed his injured shoulder, wincing. But effective. They'll freeze my assets, lock down my properties. I have maybe 48 hours before I'm completely isolated. Less than that. Elena finally turned, her expression grim. Wei Jiao put out a contract. 200,000 for information leading to your location. 500,000 if you're delivered alive. He wants to make an example. Marcus stopped pacing. This is insane. 3 days ago, I was worried about quarterly earnings. Now I'm in a safe house while the FBI and the Chinese Mafia hunt the man who saved my life. Welcome to my world, Dominic said. It's not as glamorous as the movies suggest. This isn't funny. No, it's not. Dominic stood, moving to a laptop Elena had provided. Which is why we're going to end it. Marcus, you said you have a backdoor into the Port Authority system. Can you access it from here? Yes, but no buts. We need to prove who really compromised that system. If it wasn't me, then someone else had access. Someone who wanted to frame me while enriching the Zhao family. Elena crossed her arms. You think this was a setup from the beginning? I know it was. The timing was too perfect. Those men threatening Marcus, my intervention, the access codes appearing exactly when I needed leverage. It was all orchestrated. Dominic pulled up a map of Seattle's port facilities. Someone wanted me visible, wanted me to make a move that would expose me. The question is why. Marcus joined him at the laptop. If I access the back door, I can trace every login to the system for the past month. But it'll take time. And if the FBI is monitoring network traffic, they are, Elena interrupted, which is why you'll route through my gallery's server. It's clean, encrypted, and has enough legitimate traffic to hide your access. Your gallery is a front for money laundering, Marcus said, which makes it perfect for this. The FBI already suspects it, but they can't prove anything. One more data stream won't raise alarms. Dominic watched them work, Marcus's fingers flying over the keyboard, while Elena provided access codes and routing protocols. Two people from completely different worlds, united by circumstance and necessity. It was almost beautiful in its improbability. Got it. Marcus pulled up a screen filled with login data. Every access to the Port Authority system for the past 30 days. Look, here's the breach. 4 days ago, someone with administrative credentials downloaded the complete security protocols. That was me, Dominic said. Or rather, that was the access I gave to Wei Jiao. Right, but look at this. Marcus highlighted another entry, 3 days earlier. Someone else accessed the same protocols. Different credentials, different location, but the same data. They downloaded everything you gave to Zhao before you even made the deal. Elena leaned in. So whoever this was, they already had the access codes. They let you steal what they'd already stolen. Which means the FBI's case against me is built on a crime I didn't commit. Dominic felt a cold clarity settle over him. Can you trace that earlier access? Marcus worked in silence for several minutes, his face illuminated by the screen's glow. Outside, the afternoon faded into evening, and the safe house's shadows deepened. The access came from inside the Port Authority itself. Someone with legitimate credentials, someone who wouldn't raise suspicion. Marcus pulled up a personnel file. Deputy Director of Operations Thomas Brennan. He's been with the Port Authority for 15 years. Impeccable record, security clearance, access to everything. Dominic studied the photo. A man in his 50s, graying hair, the kind of forgettable face that was perfect for someone living a double life. What else do we know about him? Elena was already on her phone, her fingers dancing across the screen. Brennan, divorced, 2 kids in college, lives in Magnolia. On paper, he's clean, but she paused, reading something that made her frown. His ex-wife filed for bankruptcy last year. Medical bills. Their daughter has leukemia, needs a bone marrow transplant. The insurance denied coverage. So he needed money, Marcus said quietly. Needed it badly enough to betray his position. And someone offered him that money. Dominic felt the pieces clicking into place. Someone who wanted access to the port system and wanted me to take the fall for it. Someone who benefits from both the Zhao family's smuggling operation and my removal from Seattle's power structure. Elena met his eyes. You know who it is. Yes. The name tasted like ashes. Vincent Calabresi. The silence that followed was absolute. Elena's expression shifted from surprise to understanding to anger. Marcus looked confused. Your friend? Marcus asked. The one who set up the meeting with Wei Jiao? My oldest friend. The man I trusted with my life. Dominic moved to the window, staring out at the city he'd called home for 2 decades. He's been my second in command for years. He knows every operation, every contact, every weakness, and he's been planning this for how long? Months? Years? Why? Elena's voice was sharp. What does he gain? Everything I have. With me gone, he inherits my network, my influence, my territory. The FBI gets their case, Wei Zhao gets his revenge, and Vincent gets an empire. Dominic laughed, bitter and hollow. It's actually brilliant. I taught him too well. His phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. Dom, where are you? The FBI is tearing apart your properties. I can help, but I need to know you're safe. Dominic showed the message to Elena and Marcus. He's trying to locate you, Elena said. Probably to sell your location to Wei Zhao, or to the FBI. Marcus stood, his earlier fear replaced by cold anger. We need to expose him. Show the FBI that Brennan was the real breach, that Vincent orchestrated everything. It's not that simple. Dominic pocketed his phone. We have data, but no proof of Vincent's involvement. Brennan could claim he acted alone. Vincent's smart enough to have insulated himself from direct evidence. Then what do we do? Dominic was quiet for a long moment, thinking through scenarios, calculating odds. Finally, he said, we give Vincent exactly what he wants, which is me, exposed, vulnerable, and desperate. Dominic turned to face them, and his expression held the kind of dangerous calm that had made him legendary in Seattle's underworld. We set a trap. We make Vincent think he's won, and then we turn his victory into his confession. Elena shook her head. That's suicide. If Vincent suspects for even a second, he won't, because he knows me. He knows I'd never suspect him, never believe my oldest friend would betray me. That arrogance is his weakness. And if you're wrong, Marcus asked, then I die, and you two take this evidence to the FBI. Either way, the truth comes out. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Dominic would contact Vincent, claim he had evidence that would clear his name, and arrange a meeting. Marcus would monitor the conversation remotely, recording everything. Elena would position her people nearby, ready to intervene if things went wrong. It was a plan built on hope and desperation, the kind of gamble Dominic had spent his career avoiding. But he was out of options and out of time. At 9 o'clock, he made the call. Vincent, I need to see you. Dom, thank God. Where are you? Are you safe? Safe enough, but I have a problem. I found evidence, proof that someone inside the Port Authority set me up, but I need your help to use it. A pause, just a fraction too long. What kind of evidence? Access logs, personnel files, financial records, enough to prove I didn't compromise the system. But I can't go to the FBI directly. They'll arrest me before I can explain. Where did you get this evidence? Does it matter? Can you help me or not? Another pause. Of course. Where do you want to meet? The warehouse on Harbor Island, where I met with Wei Zhao. Midnight. That's not safe. The Zhao family will be exactly where I want them. Midnight, Vincent. Come alone. He ended the call before Vincent could argue. Marcus looked up from his laptop, where he'd been monitoring the conversation. He's calling someone. Encrypted line, but I'm trying to trace it. He's calling Wei Zhao, Dominic said with certainty, telling him where I'll be, setting up his endgame. Elena checked her weapon, a compact Glock that looked almost delicate in her hands. My people will be in position by 11. But Dom, if this goes wrong, it won't. You can't know that. No. But I can control how I face it. The hours until midnight crawled by. Dominic used the time to write letters. One to his niece Sophia, explaining everything she'd never known about him. One to Marcus, thanking him for reminding Dominic what integrity looked like. One to Elena, releasing her from any obligations their friendship had created. He sealed them in envelopes and gave them to Elena. If I don't walk out of that warehouse, you will. If I don't, make sure these get delivered. At 11:30, they left the safe house. The rain had returned, heavier now, turning the streets into rivers of reflected light. Dominic rode with Elena, while Marcus followed in a separate car, his laptop open, monitoring communications. Harbor Island appeared through the rain like a ghost of industrial ambition, cranes rising against the sky, shipping containers stacked like children's blocks, the warehouse squatting dark and silent at the water's edge. Dominic checked his gun, though he hoped not to use it. Violence was a tool, not a solution, and tonight he needed solutions. 5 minutes, Elena said. My people are in position. You'll have backup. I know. He opened the car door, then paused. Elena, thank you. For everything. Don't thank me yet. Survive first. He walked into the warehouse alone, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. The rain drummed on the metal roof, a percussion that matched his heartbeat. At the center of the floor, a single light illuminated a circle of concrete. Vincent was already there. He stood in the light, hands in his pockets, looking exactly like the friend Dominic had known for 20 years. But his eyes held something new, something cold and calculating and utterly without mercy. "Hello, Dom." "Vincent, you look tired." "I am. Tired of running, tired of fighting, tired of this life." Dominic moved closer, stopping just outside the circle of light. "I have evidence that will clear me, but I need your help to use it." "Show me." Dominic pulled out a flash drive, a dummy, filled with meaningless data. Access logs proving Thomas Brennan compromised the Port Authority system. Financial records showing he was paid by the Zhao family, enough to shift the FBI's focus from me to him. Vincent took the drive, turning it over in his hands. "This is convenient. It's the truth, is it?" Vincent looked up, and his smile was terrible. "Or is it just another lie in a life built on lies?" The warehouse doors opened. Wei Zhao entered, flanked by a dozen armed men. Behind them came Agent Sarah Chen and a team of FBI agents, weapons drawn. Dominic's heart sank. Vincent hadn't just betrayed him. He'd orchestrated a perfect trap, bringing together everyone who wanted Dominic destroyed. "You see, Dom," Vincent said, his voice carrying across the warehouse, "I learned from the best. You taught me that power comes from controlling the narrative. So I created a narrative where you're the villain, and I'm the hero who brought you down. Vincent, Deputy Director Brennan will testify that you coerced him into providing access codes. Wei Zhao will testify that you sold him stolen federal property. Agent Chen will testify that you're a domestic terrorist. And I," Vincent spread his hands, "I'll testify that I tried to save you, but you were too far gone." The FBI agents moved forward, surrounding Dominic. Agent Chen's voice was hard. "Dominic Santoro, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit terrorism, theft of federal property, and racketeering. You have the right to remain silent." "Wait." Marcus's voice cut through the warehouse, amplified by speakers Elena's people had hidden. "Before you arrest him, you should hear this." The recording played, crystal clear despite the rain and distance. Vincent's voice from earlier that evening, talking to someone on his encrypted line. "Yes, he'll be at the warehouse at midnight. Yes, I've arranged for both the FBI and Wei Zhao to be there. No, he doesn't suspect anything. After tonight, everything he built will be mine. The payment? $500,000 from Zhao, plus whatever I can negotiate with the FBI for my cooperation. Brennan's testimony will seal it. Dom taught me well. Always have insurance. Always control the narrative. He just never considered that I'd use those lessons against him." The warehouse fell silent. Every eye turned to Vincent, whose face had gone pale. That's fabricated," Vincent stammered. "Digital manipulation. It's authenticated," Marcus said, stepping into the light. "Time-stamped, verified, and backed up on 3 separate servers. I have the technical documentation to prove it's real." Agent Chen lowered her weapon, her expression shifting from certainty to doubt. "Mr. Calabrese, I think you need to come with us." No, this is wrong. Dom is the criminal, not me. I was trying to help. You were trying to steal his empire," Elena said, emerging from the shadows with her own recording device. "And I have documentation of every payment you received from the Zhao family, every meeting with Brennan, every step of your conspiracy. You're done, Vincent." Wei Zhao watched this unfold with the detached interest of a man observing a play. Finally, he spoke. "Mr. Calabrese, you told me Dominic Santoro betrayed our agreement. You provided evidence, testimony, assurances. It appears you lied. I can explain. I don't accept explanations. I accept results." Wei nodded to his men. "Take him." "Wait!" Vincent pulled a gun, swinging it wildly between the FBI agents and Wei's men. "Stay back, all of you, The shot came from nowhere and everywhere, a crack that echoed through the warehouse. Vincent dropped, the gun clattering from his hand. He clutched his leg, screaming, while FBI agents swarmed him. Dominic hadn't moved. He stood in the circle of light, watching his oldest friend writhe on the concrete, and felt nothing but a vast, empty sadness. Agent Chen approached him cautiously. "Mr. Santoro, it appears we owe you an apology. You were doing your job. Still, we arrested the wrong man." She holstered her weapon. "We'll need your testimony against Calabrese and Brennan, and we'll need to verify Mr. Chen's evidence. But for now," she gestured to the door, "you're free to go." Dominic walked out into the rain, leaving behind the warehouse and the wreckage of a friendship that had lasted 20 years. Marcus and Elena joined him, both soaked and exhausted. "It's over," Marcus said. "No." Dominic looked at the city spread before them, lights glittering through the rain. "It's just beginning. Vincent's arrest will create a power vacuum. The Zhao family will try to fill it. The FBI will increase their scrutiny. And He paused, considering his words carefully. "I need to decide what kind of man I want to be in whatever time I have left." Elena touched his arm. "You did the right thing." "Did I?" "Vincent's life is destroyed. Brennan will go to prison. Wei Zhao will find another corrupt official to exploit. Nothing really changes." "You changed," Marcus said quietly. "You chose truth over survival. That matters." They stood in the rain, 3 people bound by circumstance and choice, while the city breathed around them. Indifferent, eternal, full of stories that would never be told. Dominic's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Uncle Dom, I heard what happened. I'm proud of you. Sophia." He stared at the message, feeling something crack in his chest. Not breaking, but opening. His niece knew. Somehow she'd learned the truth about him, and instead of disgust or fear, she offered pride. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe change was possible, even for men like him. "Come on," he said to his unlikely allies. "Let's get out of the rain." They walked toward Elena's car, leaving behind the warehouse and its ghosts, while the storm washed the city clean, and the night promised nothing but the possibility of tomorrow. The grand jury convened on a Thursday, exactly 2 weeks after Vincent's arrest. Dominic sat in a conference room in the federal building, wearing his best suit, and the expression of a man who'd made peace with whatever came next. His lawyer, a woman named Patricia Okonkwo who'd built her reputation defending the indefensible, sat beside him, reviewing documents with the focus of a surgeon. "They'll call you to testify this afternoon," Patricia said without looking up. "Agent Chen will question you first, establishing timeline and facts. Then the assistant U.S. attorney will try to poke holes in your story. Your job is to be honest, concise, and completely boring." "Boring? Grand juries love drama. Don't give them any. You're a businessman who was framed by a corrupt employee. That's the narrative. Stick to it." Dominic nodded, though he knew the truth was far more complicated. Yes, Vincent had framed him. But Dominic's empire had been built on moral compromises and legal gray areas. He wasn't innocent. He was just less guilty than Vincent had tried to make him appear. Marcus arrived at noon, carrying a briefcase full of technical documentation. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, but there was a new confidence in his bearing. The past 2 weeks had changed him, hardened him in ways that success never could. "The Port Authority confirmed everything," Marcus said, spreading printouts across the table. "Brennan's access logs, the financial transfers from shell companies linked to Vincent, the timeline of the breach. It's airtight." "And your back door?" Dominic asked. "Closed. I testified about it, accepted responsibility, and agreed to pay a fine. The Port Authority was more interested in fixing the vulnerability than prosecuting me. Apparently, saving federal infrastructure buys some goodwill." Patricia looked up. "Mr. Chen, you understand that by testifying today, you're opening yourself to cross-examination about your business practices, your relationship with Mr. Santoro, and your own potential criminal liability?" "I understand. And you're willing to do this anyway?" "I am." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Brave or stupid? I haven't decided which." "Both," Marcus said with a slight smile. "Definitely both." At 2 o'clock they were called into the grand jury room. 23 citizens sat in tiered rows, watching with the mixture of curiosity and civic duty that characterized people pulled from their normal lives to judge others. The assistant U.S. attorney, a man named Robert Finch, with the lean intensity of a distance runner, stood at a podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to determine whether sufficient evidence exists to indict Vincent Calabrese on charges of conspiracy, fraud, and corruption. Our first witness is Dominic Santoro." Dominic took the stand, raised his right hand, and swore to tell the truth. Then he told his story, edited, sanitized, but fundamentally honest. He described his consulting business, his relationship with Vincent, the threats against Marcus Chen, and the chain of events that had led to the warehouse confrontation. Finch questioned him for an hour, probing for inconsistencies, trying to establish that Dominic had been complicit in Vincent's schemes. But Patricia had prepared him well, and he gave nothing away. "Mr. Santoro," Finch finally said, "you've operated in Seattle for over 20 years. In that time, you've been investigated for money laundering, racketeering, and extortion, yet you've never been charged. Why should this grand jury believe you're the victim here, rather than a criminal who got caught? Dominic met his gaze. Because I'm not asking you to believe I'm innocent. I'm asking you to believe I'm telling the truth about Vincent Calabresi. Whatever else I've done, whatever mistakes I've made, I didn't compromise federal infrastructure. Vincent did, and he tried to destroy me to cover his tracks. That's convenient. It's also provable. Mr. Chen's testimony and the digital forensics will confirm everything I've said. Finch nodded, dismissing him. Marcus took the stand next, and for 2 hours he walked the grand jury through the technical evidence, access logs, encryption protocols, financial transfers. It was dense, complicated testimony, but Marcus had a gift for making complex ideas accessible. By the time he finished, even the jurors who'd looked skeptical were nodding. Agent Chen testified after Marcus, describing the FBI's investigation, the surveillance of the warehouse, and Vincent's recorded confession. She was professional, thorough, and damning. Finally, they called Thomas Brennan. The former deputy director of port operations looked like he'd aged a decade in 2 weeks. His suit hung loose on a frame that had lost weight, and his hands shook as he took the oath. But his voice, when he spoke, was steady. I compromised the Port Authority's tracking system, Brennan said. I provided administrative access codes to Vincent Calabresi in exchange for payment. He told me the codes would be used for a legitimate security audit. I believed him because I was desperate. My daughter needed medical treatment we couldn't afford. Vincent offered me $200,000. I took it. Did Mr. Santoro have any involvement in this transaction? Finch asked. No. I never met Mr. Santoro. I never communicated with him. Vincent told me that Santoro would be blamed for the breach, that it was all part of some larger plan. I didn't ask questions. I just wanted the money. Do you regret your actions? Brennan's voice broke. Every day. Every single day. The grand jury deliberated for 3 hours. Dominic waited in the conference room, watching the afternoon fade into evening, while Patricia fielded calls and Marcus stared at his laptop without really seeing it. At 7 o'clock, the jury foreman emerged. Patricia's phone rang immediately. They've indicted, she said after a brief conversation. Vincent Calabresi, 17 counts including conspiracy, fraud, and corruption. Brennan, 12 counts. Both are looking at 20 years minimum. Dominic felt no triumph, only a weary relief. And me? No charges. The grand jury found insufficient evidence of your involvement. You're clear. Marcus exhaled, a sound of pure release. It's really over. The legal part is, Patricia corrected. But Mr. Santoro, you should know that the FBI will continue monitoring your activities. Agent Chen made it clear that while you're not being charged, you're not exactly trusted either. I wouldn't trust me either, Dominic said. They left the federal building as night settled over Seattle. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the air clean and sharp, and the city lights reflected in puddles like scattered stars. Dominic stood on the steps, breathing deeply, feeling the weight of the past 2 weeks begin to lift. What now? Marcus asked. Now I rebuild. Vincent's betrayal created chaos in my organization. People are scared, uncertain. I need to restore order, reassure my clients, and figure out who I can still trust. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it's also necessary. Dominic turned to face Marcus. What about you? Back to running your company? Eventually. But first, I'm taking Emma on vacation. Somewhere warm, with beaches and no extradition treaties. Marcus smiled. She's been asking about you, actually. Wants to know if you're really a secret agent. What did you tell her? That you're a complicated man who did a good thing. She's 7. That's enough for now. They shook hands, and Dominic felt the strange intimacy of shared trauma. 2 men from different worlds, bound by circumstance into something resembling friendship. Elena was waiting by her car, smoking a cigarette with the elegant disdain of someone who'd never cared about health warnings. I heard. Congratulations on not going to prison. Thank you for your help. I couldn't have done this without you. I know. You owe me. Name your price. She took a long drag, considering. Information. Vincent's network is collapsing. People are scrambling for position, making alliances, preparing for war. I need to know who's trustworthy, and who's just waiting for an opportunity to betray me like Vincent betrayed you. I'll make some calls. Good. She dropped the cigarette, crushing it under her heel. Also, Dom, whatever you're planning next, whatever move you're considering, Be careful. You've made enemies. Powerful ones. Wei Zhao may have backed off for now, but he doesn't forget. And the FBI will be watching everything you do. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you look like a man who's thinking about making another grand gesture, another sacrifice. And I'm telling you, as your friend, that you can't keep doing this. Eventually, the sacrifices will cost you everything. Dominic was quiet for a long moment, watching the city breathe around them. What if everything is what I'm willing to pay? Then you're a fool. But you're my fool, so I'll keep helping you anyway. She opened her car door. Call me tomorrow. We'll strategize. She drove away, leaving Dominic alone on the street. He walked, not toward his penthouse or his office, but toward Pike Place Market. The market was closed, the vendors gone, but the smell of fish and flowers still lingered in the air. He stood at the railing overlooking Elliott Bay, watching ferries cross the dark water, and thought about the choices that had brought him here. His phone rang. Sophia. Uncle Dom? Sophia, it's late. Shouldn't you be studying? I finished my homework. I wanted to check on you. Mom told me about the trial. She said you were brave. Your mother is generous. She said you protected someone who needed help, that you risked everything to do the right thing. Is that true? Dominic closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his niece's faith. I tried. I don't know if I succeeded. You did. Mr. Chen came to my school today. He gave a talk about integrity and courage. He told us about someone who'd helped him when no one else would. He didn't say your name, but I knew. I knew it was you. Sophia, I'm proud of you, Uncle Dom. Whatever else you've done, whatever mistakes you've made, you did something good. That matters. They talked for another 10 minutes, about school and her plans for college, and the future she was building. When she finally said goodbye, Dominic stood alone in the darkness, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Santoro. We should meet. I have information about your organization that you'll want to hear. WZ Wei Zhao. Dominic stared at the message, knowing it was probably a trap, knowing he should ignore it, knowing he wouldn't. Because that was who he was. A man who walked toward danger instead of away from it, who chose confrontation over safety, who believed that some things were worth the risk. He typed back, when and where. The response came immediately. Tomorrow. Noon. The restaurant where this all began. Rossi's Trattoria. Come alone. Dominic pocketed his phone and walked back toward his car. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, new choices. But tonight, he was alive, free, and still fighting. The city lights blurred through sudden tears, not of sadness, but of exhaustion and relief, and the strange, fierce joy of survival. He drove home through empty streets, while the night wrapped around him like a promise, and the future waited with all its terrible possibilities. Rossi's Trattoria looked exactly as it had 3 weeks ago. Amber light in the windows, red-checked tablecloths, Sinatra crooning from hidden speakers. But everything had changed. Dominic felt it the moment he walked through the door. The weight of transformation that came from surviving something that should have destroyed you. Maria Rossi greeted him with a nervous smile. Mr. Santoro, your usual table? Actually, I'm meeting someone. The back room, if it's available. Of course. I'll bring water. The back room had been repaired, the bullet holes patched and painted over, the broken furniture replaced. But Dominic could still see the violence in his mind's eye. The 5 men, Marcus's fear, the moment he'd chosen to step out of the shadows. Wei Zhao was already there, sitting at the table where Marcus had been threatened. He wore a dark suit and the expression of a man who'd outlived most of his enemies through patience and calculation. 2 bodyguards stood by the door, but they made no move as Dominic entered. Mr. Santoro, thank you for coming. I wasn't sure I would, but you did. Because you're curious. Because you want to know what I know. Wei gestured to the chair across from him. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. Dominic sat, keeping his hands visible, his posture relaxed. You put a contract on my life 2 weeks ago. Now you want to talk. Forgive me if I'm skeptical. The contract has been withdrawn. Vincent Calabrese deceived both of us. He used my organization to frame you, and he used you to gain access to my smuggling routes. We were both his victims. That's a generous interpretation. It's also accurate. Wei poured tea from a ceramic pot. The movement's precise and ritualistic. I've spent the past 2 weeks investigating Vincent's operations. He was more ambitious than either of us realized. He planned to eliminate you, take control of your network, and then use that network to push me out of Seattle. He would have succeeded if not for Mr. Chen's technical expertise and your moral flexibility. I prefer strategic pragmatism. Wei smiled, a brief flash of humor. Call it what you like. The result is the same. Vincent is in federal custody. His organization is in chaos, and Seattle's criminal infrastructure is unstable. This creates opportunities and dangers, which is why you wanted to meet. Yes. Wei sipped his tea, his gaze never leaving Dominic's face. I'm proposing an alliance, not friendship. We're too old and too wise for such sentimentality, but a mutual understanding. You control certain aspects of Seattle's economy. I control others. We've coexisted peacefully for years because we respected boundaries. Vincent's betrayal threatened that balance. I want to restore it. What are you offering? Information, protection, access to resources you'll need to rebuild your organization. In exchange, I want assurance that you won't interfere with my operations and that you'll provide advance warning if federal investigations threaten my interests. Dominic considered this. It was a reasonable offer, the kind of practical arrangement that had sustained his empire for 2 decades. But something had changed in him during the past 3 weeks. The old calculations didn't satisfy the way they once had. I appreciate the offer, Dominic said carefully, but I need to be honest with you. I'm not the same man I was 3 weeks ago. Vincent's betrayal, Marcus Chen's integrity, the FBI's investigation, it's made me reconsider how I operate. I'm not sure I want to continue the way I have been. Wei set down his teacup. You're thinking of going legitimate. I'm thinking of going less illegitimate. There's a difference. A small one. And a dangerous one. Men like us, Mr. Santoro, we don't retire. We don't reform. We either die or we're destroyed. There is no third option. Maybe there should be. Idealism is a luxury we can't afford. Can't we? Dominic leaned forward. Look at what happened. Vincent betrayed me because he wanted power. Brennan betrayed the Port Authority because he was desperate. You and I nearly went to war because of manipulation and lies. All of it, all of this chaos, came from the same source. Fear, greed, the belief that we have to take from others to survive. What if we're wrong? What if there's another way? Wei was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he said, You've been talking to Marcus Chen too much. His optimism is contagious. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of the alternative. Tired or not, the reality remains. Seattle's criminal infrastructure needs leadership. If you step back, someone else will step forward. Someone less principled, less careful. The violence will escalate. Innocent people will suffer. Is that what you want? It was the same argument Dominic had used to justify his actions for 20 years. The necessary evil, the controlled chaos, the belief that his presence prevented something worse. But he'd seen what that belief had cost. Vincent's betrayal, Brennan's desperation. The 5 men who'd beaten Marcus Chen, convinced they were just following orders. I don't know what I want, Dominic admitted, but I know what I don't want. I don't want to spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder, wondering which friend will betray me next. I don't want to be the reason good people make bad choices. And I don't want my niece to inherit a legacy built on compromises that corroded my soul one decision at a time. Wei studied him with the intensity of a man reading an ancient text. Your niece, Sophia Russo, 17 years old, straight A student, wants to study medicine at Stanford. She's your weakness, Mr. Santoro. Everyone knows it now. Dominic's hand moved instinctively toward his jacket, but Wei raised a placating hand. I'm not threatening her. I'm stating a fact. Vincent knew about her. Brennan knew. The FBI knows. You've spent 20 years being invisible, and now everyone can see exactly where to hurt you. That's the price of your moral awakening. Then it's a price I'll pay. Will you? Because I can protect her. My organization has resources the FBI can't touch. I can ensure that Sophia Russo lives her life without ever knowing the dangers that surround her uncle. All I ask in return is the alliance I proposed. Simple, clean, mutually beneficial. It was a devil's bargain, elegant in its simplicity. Dominic's protection for Sophia's safety, his continued participation in Seattle's underworld in exchange for peace of mind. He almost said yes. Then his phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Emma asked if you're coming to her birthday party next week. She wants to introduce you to her friends as the man who saved my daddy. Please say yes. Dominic stared at the message, feeling the weight of 2 futures pressing against each other. One where he accepted Wei's offer and continued as he'd always been. Another where he chose something different, something harder, something that might cost him everything, but would let him look Sophia and Emma in the eye without shame. "No," he said quietly. Wei's expression didn't change. "No, I appreciate your offer. I understand the logic behind it, but I can't accept. Not anymore." Dominic stood, buttoning his jacket. "I'm going to rebuild my organization, but I'm going to do it differently. Legitimate businesses, legal consulting. I'll use the connections I've built to create something that doesn't require looking over my shoulder or wondering which friend will betray me next. You'll fail. Within 6 months, someone will move into the vacuum you've created. Within a year, you'll be irrelevant or dead. Maybe, but at least I'll fail on my own terms." Wei stood as well, and for a moment they faced each other across the table, two men who'd survived by understanding the rules of a brutal game, now acknowledging that one of them was choosing to stop playing. "I respect your decision," Wei said finally. "I think it's foolish, but I respect it. However, I want you to understand something. The protection I offered Sophia, that offer expires the moment you walk out of this room. After that, you're on your own. And there are people in this city who will see your transformation as weakness. They will test you. They will hurt the people you care about. And when that happens, you'll remember this conversation and wish you'd made a different choice. I'll take that risk. Then I wish you luck, Mr. Santoro. You're going to need it." Dominic left the restaurant, stepping out into a Seattle afternoon that had turned unexpectedly bright. The sun broke through the clouds, casting sharp shadows and illuminating the city in ways that made it look almost new. He stood on the sidewalk, breathing deeply, feeling the weight of his decision settle into his bones. His phone rang. "Elena, I heard about your meeting with Wei Zhao. Tell me you didn't do something stupid." Define stupid. "Dom, I turned down his alliance. I'm going legitimate." Silence on the other end, so complete that Dominic thought the call had dropped. Then Elena's voice, tight with controlled anger. "You're going to get yourself killed. Possibly. And you're okay with that?" "I'm okay with trying something different. Elena, I've spent 20 years building an empire on fear and compromise. It's made me wealthy and powerful and completely hollow. I want to see if there's another way. There isn't. Not for men like us. Then I'll be the first to prove everyone wrong." Another silence, then softer. "You're serious about this?" "Completely." "Then you're going to need help. Real help. Not the kind I usually provide, but the legal, boring, legitimate kind. I know people. Lawyers, accountants, business consultants who specialize in helping criminals go straight. It's a whole industry, apparently. You'd help me? I'd help you not die stupidly. There's a difference." Her voice carried something that might have been affection. "Besides, someone needs to keep an eye on you. Make sure your moral awakening doesn't turn into a suicide mission." "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to be expensive, complicated, and probably futile. But if you're determined to try, at least let me help you do it right." They talked for another 20 minutes, Elena already strategizing, planning, turning Dominic's vague idealism into concrete steps. By the time they hung up, he had a meeting scheduled with a law firm that specialized in corporate restructuring, and a list of legitimate businesses he could acquire using his existing capital. He drove to Marcus Chen's office, a modern building in South Lake Union with floor-to-ceiling windows and the kind of aggressive optimism that characterized Seattle's tech industry. The receptionist recognized him immediately. "Mr. Santoro, Mr. Chen said you might stop by. He's in a meeting, but he asked me to interrupt him if you arrived." "That's not necessary." But she was already calling, and moments later Marcus appeared, slightly disheveled, carrying a tablet and wearing the expression of a man juggling too many priorities. "Dom, come in. I was just reviewing Q3 projections, but they can wait." He led Dominic to his office, a space that managed to be both professional and personal. Family photos on the desk, Emma's drawings on one wall, a whiteboard covered in complex equations. "What's going on? You look like you've made a decision." "I have. I'm going legitimate. Completely, irrevocably legitimate." Marcus set down his tablet, giving Dominic his full attention. "That's ambitious. Also possibly insane, but mostly ambitious. What changed?" "Everything. Nothing. I don't know." Dominic moved to the window, looking out at the city he'd controlled from the shadows for 2 decades. "I've spent my entire adult life operating in gray areas, convincing myself that I was a necessary evil, that without me, things would be worse. But Vincent's betrayal showed me the truth. I wasn't preventing chaos. I was just managing it, and I'm tired of managing. I want to build something real. Do you know how?" No, which is why I'm here. You've built a legitimate company from nothing. You've created value, employed people, made a difference. I want to learn how to do that. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. It's not easy. Building something legitimate means accepting limitations. It means playing by rules that often feel arbitrary and unfair. It means watching competitors cut corners while you don't, and hoping that integrity eventually wins out. Does it? Win out? Sometimes. Not always. But when it does, the victory means something. Marcus picked up a photo from his desk. Emma, grinning at the camera, missing her front teeth. This is why I do it. So she can grow up in a world where her father's success doesn't come with asterisks and whispered rumors. So she can be proud of what I've built without having to make excuses. Is that what you want? For Sophia? Yes. Then I'll help you. But Dom, you need to understand. Going legitimate doesn't erase your past. The FBI will still watch you. Your former associates will still remember who you were. And there will be moments when the old ways seem easier, more efficient, more tempting. You'll have to resist that temptation every single day. I know. Do you? Because this isn't a dramatic gesture. It's not a grand sacrifice. It's boring, tedious work that requires patience and discipline, and the willingness to fail repeatedly before you succeed. Are you really ready for that? Dominic met his gaze. I don't know, but I'm ready to try. Marcus smiled, and it was genuine. Then let's get started. First thing, you need a legitimate business structure. We'll set up a consulting firm, properly licensed and registered. Then we'll identify your existing assets and figure out which ones can be legitimized and which ones need to be divested. It'll take months, maybe years, but it's possible. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Marcus walked Dominic through corporate structures, tax implications, regulatory requirements, all the mundane details that separated legitimate business from criminal enterprise. It was overwhelming and exhausting, and strangely exhilarating. At 6 o'clock, Marcus's assistant knocked. Mr. Chen, your daughter's online too. She says it's important. Marcus picked up the phone, his expression shifting immediately to concern. Emma? What's wrong? Dominic watched as Marcus listened, his face going pale. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Okay, sweetheart. Stay with your teacher. Don't leave the building. I'm coming right now. He hung up and turned to Dominic. Someone tried to approach Emma at school, a man she didn't recognize. He knew her name, knew details about her schedule. Her teacher intervened, but... Weizhou. Dominic's voice was flat. He's sending a message, showing me what happens when I refuse his protection. We need to call the police. The police can't help. Not with this. Dominic was already moving toward the door. Where's Emma now? Still at school. Lakeside. Her teacher is keeping her in the classroom until I arrive. I'm coming with you. They drove in tense silence, Marcus gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, while Dominic made calls on his burner phone. By the time they reached Lakeside School, he'd arranged for private security, former Secret Service agents who owed him favors, to watch both Emma and Sophia around the clock. Emma was in the principal's office, sitting between her teacher and a school counselor. She looked small and scared, and when she saw Marcus, she ran to him with the desperate relief of a child who'd been trying to be brave. Daddy, there was a man. He said he had a message for Mr. Santoro. He said to tell you that protection has a price. Dominic felt cold rage settle over him, the kind of focused anger that had made him dangerous in his previous life. Weizhou had crossed a line. He'd threatened a child to make a point. That couldn't stand. But the old Dominic would have responded with violence, would have sent men to deliver a message written in blood and fear. The new Dominic, the one trying to be legitimate, had to find another way. Emma, he said gently, kneeling so he was at her eye level. I'm sorry this happened. It's my fault. But I promise you, no one is going to hurt you. I've arranged for some very serious people to keep you safe. They're professionals, the best. And your dad and I are going to make sure this never happens again. Are you really a secret agent? Emma asked, her fear temporarily overcome by curiosity. No, I'm just someone who made mistakes and is trying to fix them. But I'm very good at keeping people safe, and you're important to me. So I'm going to keep you safe, okay? Emma nodded, and Marcus mouthed, "Thank you," over her head. They left the school with a security detail in place. 2 agents who would shadow Emma at all times, invisible but present. Marcus drove home with his daughter, while Dominic returned to his penthouse to plan his next move. Elena was waiting in his living room, having bypassed his building's security with her usual efficiency. I heard about the school. Way's making his move. He's testing me, seeing if I'll revert to the old ways. Will you? Dominic poured himself a whiskey, his hand steady despite the rage still simmering beneath his surface. No, but I'm not going to let him threaten children either. I need to send a message, one that's clear but doesn't involve violence. How? By hitting him where it actually hurts. His business, his reputation, his relationships with other organizations. Dominic pulled out his laptop, accessing files he'd accumulated over 20 years. I have information on Way's operations, shipping routes, corrupt officials, financial structures. I've kept it as insurance. Now I'm going to use it. You're going to the FBI. I'm going to give them everything they need to dismantle Way's smuggling network. Anonymously, untraceable, but comprehensive. Within a month, he'll be fighting federal investigations on 6 different fronts. He won't have time or resources to threaten anyone. Elena smiled, sharp and approving. That's actually brilliant. Ruthless but legitimate. You're learning. I had good teachers. They spent the night compiling evidence, organizing it into formats that would be useful to federal investigators, and creating anonymous channels for delivery. By dawn, they'd assembled a case that would keep the FBI busy for years. Dominic sent the files at 6 a.m., using encryption and routing protocols that would make them impossible to trace. Then he made one final call, to a number he'd sworn never to use. Agent Chen, this is Dominic Santoro. I have information about Wei Zhao's smuggling operations. Everything you need for a RICO case. I'm sending it to a secure drop. Use it well. He hung up before she could respond, then deleted the burner phone's SIM card and dropped it in his garbage disposal. It's done, he told Elena. Wei will know it was me, but he won't be able to prove it, and he'll be too busy defending himself to retaliate. You're sure about this? Once you cross this line, you can't go back. You'll be known as the man who cooperated with the FBI. Every criminal organization in the city will see you as a traitor. Good. I don't want their business anymore. Elena studied him, her expression unreadable. You've really changed. I'm trying to. It suits you. The whole moral clarity thing. It's very Jimmy Stewart. I'll take that as a compliment. She left as the sun rose over Elliott Bay, painting the water in shades of gold and copper. Dominic stood at his window, watching the city wake up, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the peace of safety or certainty, but the peace of alignment, of choices that matched values, of actions he could defend without rationalization. His phone rang. Sophia. Uncle Dom? I heard something happened at Emma's school. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. Everything's handled. Mom said you're making changes, that you're trying to be different. I am. It's complicated, but yes, I'm trying. Good. Because I've always known you were a good person, Uncle Dom. Even when you didn't believe it yourself. I'm glad you're finally figuring it out. They talked for a few minutes more, about nothing important, and everything that mattered. When Sophia finally said goodbye, Dominic sat in his living room and allowed himself to cry. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen and accepted and believed in. At noon, Marcus called. The security team says Emma's safe. No more incidents. And I just got a call from a friend at the Port Authority. Apparently the FBI is launching a major investigation into international smuggling. Multiple organizations are being targeted. It's causing chaos in the criminal community. Imagine that. Dom, was that you? I have no idea what you're talking about. Marcus laughed, a sound of pure delight. You magnificent bastard. You actually did it. You went after Wei Zhao without firing a shot. I'm trying this whole legitimate thing. Seemed like a good place to start. Emma's birthday party is Saturday, 2 o'clock. My place. Please come. She's been practicing her introduction. Apparently you're the bravest man in Seattle. I'm really not. You are to her. And to me. So please, come. Let us thank you properly. Dominic agreed, and spent the rest of the week dismantling his old empire and building a new one. He met with lawyers, accountants, and business consultants. He sold off properties and divested from operations that couldn't be legitimized. He set up a proper consulting firm, with articles of incorporation and tax ID numbers, and all the boring infrastructure of legitimate business. It was exhausting, tedious work. But it was also strangely satisfying. Saturday arrived with clear skies and the kind of crisp autumn air that made Seattle feel like a city of infinite possibilities. Dominic drove to Marcus's house in Magnolia, a craftsman-style home with a view of Puget Sound and a yard where children were already playing. Emma met him at the door, wearing a party dress and a smile that could have powered the city. "Mr. Santoro, you came. I want you to meet my friends." She dragged him into the backyard, where a dozen 7-year-olds were engaged in the serious business of cake and presents. Marcus stood by the grill, talking with other parents, and when he saw Dominic, he waved him over. "Everyone, this is my friend Dom. He's the reason Emma and I are here today." The parents nodded politely, not understanding the full weight of that statement. But Marcus did, and Emma did, and that was enough. Dominic spent the afternoon eating cake, watching children play, and feeling the strange, unfamiliar sensation of belonging, of being part of something normal and good, and uncomplicated by moral compromise. As the party wound down, and parents collected their children, Emma approached him one final time. "Mr. Santoro, thank you for keeping my daddy safe, and for keeping me safe. You're my hero." Dominic knelt, meeting her eyes. "You're very welcome, Emma. But the real heroes are people like your dad. People who build things and create value and make the world better. I'm just someone who's trying to learn from them. That's what heroes do," Emma said with the absolute certainty of childhood. "They try." After the party, Dominic drove to Rossi's trattoria one final time. He sat in his usual booth, ordered his usual pasta, and savored the familiar comfort of routine. Maria brought his cacio e pepe with a smile. "Mr. Santoro, it's good to see you. Things have been different lately." "Different how?" "Quieter, safer. Whatever you did, thank you." He ate slowly, watching the restaurant fill with families and couples and people living ordinary lives. Lives uncomplicated by federal investigations and criminal conspiracies and the weight of moral compromise. When he finished, he left a generous tip and walked out into the Seattle evening. The city lights were coming on, one by one, pushing back the darkness. Dominic stood on the sidewalk, breathing in the salt air from the sound, and made a promise to himself. He would build something worth building. He would create value instead of extracting it. He would be the kind of man his niece believed him to be, and the kind of man Emma thought was a hero. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks and failures and moments when the old ways seemed simpler. But he would persist, because that's what heroes did. They tried. Dominic walked toward his car, leaving behind the restaurant and the life he'd known, while the city breathed around him. Indifferent, eternal, full of second chances for those brave enough to take them. The rain began again, gentle and cleansing, washing the streets clean as the night settled over Seattle like a promise of tomorrow. If you've been following this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of Dominic's transformation? Do you believe people can truly change? Or are we defined by our past choices? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that explore the complexity of redemption, courage, and the choices that define us. Thank you for listening.